Hey everybody. Okay, we're back. This is part 2 of a two-part thing. This time we're going to cover lightweight to heavyweight. Alright, so make sure you check out part 1, which covered the minimum weight or mini flyweight or straw weight or atom weight division up to the super featherweight or junior lightweight division. All right. Let me give a shout out to Joe Cool. Thanks for chiming in. All right. So first, we take a look at the loaded lightweight division from 1 to 20. This is a class which has as much quality as the division directly below it, which is a super featherweight or junior lightweight. Just a lot of quality in the top 20, top 25. Same here at lightweight. Now, the fight to make, hands down, is Vasily Lomachenko versus Gervonta Davis. If this was 2018. But it's not. That one won't happen. But now people are interested in a different matchup. Based on the flow of the division, the marquee fight here would be a showdown between Vasily high-tech Lomachenko versus Devin. What is he, the American Dream? Haney. I think I got his moniker right. I'm not sure about that. I think it's the American Dream. As I stated, there are a host of fights that can be made. I think Devin is the I'm sorry. Devin is the Dream. The American Dream is anyway, getting my guys mixed up. Devin the Dream Haney. Now, it's the marquee fight to make. It's not there yet, but it will develop into that. Okay, problem is, Lomachenko is naturally just too small for this division. And he said a while back he'd move back to 130. We'll see. But if he stays, that's definitely the fight to make. I would say I would push it to mid to late 2021. Initially maybe early 2021, but this situation has us to a point where some things are going to get pushed back. On the flip side, some things are going to get rushed, so you just don't know. Until then, any of the top 10 guys, minus Richard Comey and Luke Campbell, against Lomachenko is welcome. He's the man, and you have to come see him. So, the fight people want to see currently is Loma versus Teofimo Lopez. Now, it was going to take place sometime between April and June until things got postponed. The only thing I believe that will beat Vasily Lomachenko, or the only things, are Father Time and someone who is athletic and gifted and who is just too big. And that guy in mid to late 2021 will be Devin Haney, if he can get 3 to 4 fights in by then. If Devin Haney gets 3 to 4 fights in by then, he beats those guys, whoever they may be, I'm telling you, he is going to be as unbeatable can get. And so some people mistook that statement, which I've said numerous times. I'm not saying he's unbeatable. I'm saying as unbeatable can get. What I mean is he's going to be the closest to unbeatable. This guy, he just has it all written over him. And he'll be ready by then, in my opinion. And I say that knowing Vasily is my favorite. Okay? So there's no bias. But Vasily will be about 34 or so, something like that. Maybe 35. I got to check my math on that. But what better guy to pass the torch to than the ultra-talented Haney? We'll see. Other matchups in this division would be bananas. You got Ryan Garcia versus Gervonta Davis. That would be fire. Teofimo Lopez versus Davis would be crazy. That's an East Coast fight for sure. Ryan Garcia versus Jorge Linares. That was set to take place. So that one will also be awesome. That's a great fight for both guys. Great acid test for both guys. A test for Linares to see if he still got it, and a test for Garcia to see if he's going to keep on showing these flashes of greatness. You also have Luke Campbell, Lee Selby, Felix Verdejo, Ladarius Miller, Yuri Yorkis Gamboa, Javier Fortuna, Richard Comey, Alberto Machado, and Jason Sosa, all in the mix. Okay, plenty of solid matchups to make in this weight class. Excuse my voice, getting a little hoarse. You know, great matchups, and guys are going to come back wanting to fight once things activate again. So, and that's not just this class; it's all the classes. But so we'll see. We'll see how it plays. All right, next up is super lightweight or junior welterweight. The fight to make here is definitely, hands down, Jose Carlos Ramirez, or Jose Ramirez, as most of you know, versus Josh Taylor. Ramirez was scheduled to fight Victor Postol, I think in April. And if you think about it, and then they were lining up the Ramirez fight. So what if they lined up, what if he got past Postol and they lined that Ramirez up? I mean, to think, early on in 2020, we would have gotten Fury Wilder 2, Ramirez versus Taylor, Lomachenko versus Lopez, Spence Jr. versus Garcia, Joshua versus Pulev, King Rai versus Linares, Campbell versus Fortuna, Prograis versus Hooker, Charlo versus Lara, Pacquiao versus the other Garcia, Usyk versus Chisora, Briedis versus Dorticos, or Dorticos, and even Triple D, Daniel Dubois versus Joe Joyce. I mean, we were going to be looking good by the midway point. You got Saul Alvarez and Billy Joe Saunders also that was scheduled. So that would have been a very nice start. And those were the ones that were either announced or on their way to being put together. Anyway, the Ramirez versus Taylor would be action-packed throughout. You saw how Taylor handled the skilled Prograis, especially late in that fight. And you already know how Ramirez is going to come at you. Hard, fast, and non-stop. So, as I stated, Ramirez was he was first slated to fight Victor Postal, but and that fight is no easy task. Victor can fight. If and when that fight still happens, I think Ramirez is going to pass the test. Nonetheless. Other fights nobody would complain about are the rematch between Prograis and Taylor. Very close fight. Also, Prograis versus Hooker was coming to MGM National Harbor, and I was set to go see that one. That's not a gimme fight for Prograis, as Hooker's advantages, I think, will cause problems for Prograis. Meaning, Prograis 5'8" with a 67-inch reach, and Hooker is 5'11" with an 80-inch reach. You understand? On top of that, it's a catchweight fight. So Hooker wouldn't kill himself to make 140, which I'm sure he has been. So I think it was set for 143 pounds. But this was going to be a good one. Win or lose, I think it's time for Hooker to move up, unless he wins and gets a big fight at a catchweight. But I think if he fights for belts and gets a Ramirez or rematches Taylor, the weight will beat him before the opponent. Because I can't see him being that healthy and making 140. Now, with this delay, I'm not sure what the weight would be if he went on and fought Prograis. Okay, also in the mix are Jose Zapata. Zapata. I'm thinking about. I'm trying to say Pedraza and Zapata, and it came out Zapata. But Jose Zapata. Here I go again. Jose Zapata, who beat Jose Pedraza, and then he lost a majority decision to Jose Ramirez. Okay, and so Zapata's only other loss was to Terry Flanagan when he dislocated his shoulder. To me, that fight should have been ruled a no contest, but they gave it to Flanagan. You got Ivan Barancek, Jose Pedraza, Terry Flanagan, Mario Barrios, who got a gift decision recently, Jack Catterall, Louis Ritson, Robert Easter Jr., and Rances Barthélemy. All guys in the mix who can win on any given night. And Subriel Matias, too. Dangerous guy. But we want Ramirez Taylor, and it's a fight that won't be difficult to make. All right, let's talk about the welterweight division. Easily, the fight everyone with some sense wants is a unification between Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. I'm going to rub people the wrong way with this, but I have to be honest. I don't think Spence Jr. wanted this fight when it was brought up. I don't think he wanted it after he was approached. And I don't think he wants it now. And the automobile accident has nothing to do with the fight being made or not. I just think one side wants it and the other side either doesn't want it or they don't want it as much as the other side. I'll say it that way. But by the time this fight cranks back up and is in full demand, I believe one of two things are happening. Crawford will be 35 years old and a bit too past it. Or Spence Jr. will say what I expected him to say when I made a video a while back. I can't make 147 pounds anymore. And if that happens, I hope Terrence calls his bluff and meets him at the higher weight. Now, I've been next to both fighters. Spence Jr. probably about 1, 2, 3. Probably about 4 times. And Crawford, I've been around him about 6, 7 times, maybe more. Like I'm talking literally like right within a 1 to 5 foot range. And trust me, Spence Jr. is much bigger than Terrence. Terrence doesn't look big at all, even compared to smaller welterweights. And I don't know. You know what? This isn't about accusations. It's about matchups. And this is the best one in the division. Pacquiao versus Spence Jr. is also a good one. Sean Porter's there too. And he lost a split decision to Spence Jr. I wouldn't mind a rematch there if that happened. Danny Garcia and Keith Thurman Jr. are in the mix. And while I don't need to see them fight each other again, Garcia and Thurman Jr., nor do I want to see Danny fight Porter again. They're still good fights if they happen. Porter and Thurman Jr. should have ran it back right away. That's something that should have happened right afterwards, but it didn't. And that's kind of what troubles me with certain aspects of the sport. It's like, come on, man, that's a natural rematch. There wasn't a conclusive. The same with Spence Jr. and Porter. I mean, it's like, run it back, man. Mikey Garcia, Yordenis Ugas, Jesse Vargas, Amir Khan, Sergey Lipinets are all viable guys to step in. You got Jamal James, you got Edges Kavalauskas, you got Alexander Disputin, and Virgil Ortiz Jr. They're also there, along with Josh Kelly and the flashy Jaron Ennis, who feels he's ready right now. So this is another class from 1 to 25 that is hot. And I'm sure we'll see prospect versus prospect matches, as well as top 10 challenges and hopefully unifications coming soon. All right. Let's move to the super welterweight or junior middleweight division. Once again, plenty of good fights to make here. It's tough to call about the marquee matchup. Just like I said, Loma versus Davis would have been great 2 years ago. We could say the same about Hurd and Charlo, or Williams Charlo. But at this point, when you look at things and how they played out, right now, the fight to make for so many reasons is Jermell Charlo versus Erislandy Lara. First of all, rumors are this fight was going to be signed. Secondly, and it's a nice triangle here, Derek James is Jermell's trainer, but Jermell's former trainer, Ronnie Shields, is Jamal's trainer. So that puts a trainer out there trying to beat his former pupil. You understand? So to add to the drama, Jermell's twin brother, Jamal, his trainer is Ronnie Shields. So you got one guy who left the trainer And now that trainer probably knows, it feels like he knows how to beat the guy. The new trainer is like, I'm not going to let that happen. And then the brother, big brother, is like, okay, this guy is going to, my trainer is going to train another guy to beat my brother. Now, the twins may brush it off early, but I think Jamal would feel some kind of way that his trainer is training another man to beat his brother, especially a twin brother. There's a different bond with twins, and especially baby twin brother. So just based on drama alone, joined with how titles have changed hands over the past year, this is the fight for now. However, you have Banana Rosario, who I wouldn't mind seeing fight Charlo in a unification. Charlo versus Hurd was the one people wanted a year ago, until Julian Williams and Tony Harrison upset the card. And speaking of a tactical matchup, I wouldn't mind seeing Williams versus Harrison. I think that one will be good. Would have been nice to see that one when they both had belts, but hey. Kell Brook might be next at a catchweight for Terrence Crawford. We'll see. If so, that would qualify as this weight class, if it's above 147. I don't know why Kell just doesn't fight at 54. Anyway, I think that was his mistake with Spence Jr. after the Golovkin beating, and then he had to lose all that weight. I think it caught up to him. Anyway, Crawford versus Brook at a catchweight. That's a good fight. Now, in the wings, you have Brian Carlos Castana, who some people thought beat Lara, but settled for a draw last year. Tony Harrison, Carlos Adames, Tim Zhu, Costa Zhu's son, Charles Conwell, Sebastian Fundora. That's the, what's his nickname? The Tower? I can't remember what his nickname is, but I think my man is like 6'6", 6'5", something like that. Magomed Kurbanov. And also the forgotten man, Erickson Lubin, who looks sharp in 4 fights since his only loss against Charlo, including beating Ishe Smith and Nathaniel Gallimore. I think Lubin is ready. This thing that's going on right now is just kind of veered people off course, because there were some people who were just like ready, and he was one of them. So I give Lubin a couple more fights, and I think he's ready for anyone. So if Charlo versus Lara isn't made, I take Banana Rosario versus Charlo over Charlo versus Hurd at the moment. Hurd isn't ready. That style he used in his last fight won't work. Up next is middleweight. Now, I'll look at this class and say Saul Alvarez is the man right now, and while there are about 4 fights people want to see, this one I'm going to split up, because the world is split up on this one, okay? 25% of the people want Golovkin. Alright? Now, they waited for Golovkin, and they waited him out and thought Gennady was old, and Golovkin won the first matchup in 98% of the world's eyes. As old and slow as he looked, he just manhandled him. They rematched, and personally, I thought Golovkin won again, watching it live in the arena. Now, rumor has it they'll fight a third time next. And I guess in trying to find a way to move Saunders out of the picture, Billy Joe kind of did them the favor. Billy Joke Saunders. Okay, so that makes the 25% who want to see Golovkin happy. Now, the 75% who don't think he's too old. And I actually don't mind if this fight isn't at 160. Golovkin works, even though he's a small middleweight, he's old middleweight. So he works extremely hard to make the weight. And it looks like he looked like a skeleton making the weight in the fights with Alvarez, especially that first one. I got to go back and look at the weigh-in for the second one. But, man, I'm like, man, dude, you don't look... I mean, man, he looked drawn out. Golovkin, at the very least, will be 38 when they fight. Okay. Next 25% of the people want to see Jamal Charlo. Charlo is young, he's undefeated, and he packs a big punch. He doesn't have the resume at 160, but I'd like to see him give it a shot. See where it takes him. Alright. The next 25% of the people want to see Demetrius Andrade. Andrade has been a paradox with his promotional decisions as well as his resume. The talent is there, and resume or not, at age 32, it's time to get something big cooking. All right, and the final 25% want Jaime Munguia. Now that's a natural for either Cinco de Mayo or Mexican independence. Munguia is a good fighter. He needs to work on his defense, and at 23, Team Alvarez may decide to take him on next after Golovkin before Munguia develops into what his team thinks he can be. If Oscar De La Hoya is going to risk Munguia, it might as well be in-house, right? So Alvarez can't fight all four of these guys. So whoever is remaining, I'd like to see a Golovkin-Charlo, which will probably won't happen. Charlo versus Andrade is a grudge match, as those two don't like each other. You got Kanat Islam, who's a very good fighter. Very good, but he's 35. And it's time for him to make his mark. You got the Ryota Muratas and the Liam Smiths and the Jeff Horns out there, but the cream is at the top, including Chris Eubank Jr. Super middleweight. Super middleweight is next, and Saul Juice Alvarez floats here. We won't count him in this weight class, all right? So while Daniel Jacobs and Callum Smith are the top two, I think the fight most people want to see is David Benavidez versus Caleb Plant. Now, if Alvarez were to come there, then people would want to see him and Callum Smith, followed by him and Plant. Personally, I'd like to see a rematch with Jacobs at 68, but that's beside the point. Actually, I'm sorry. The fight people would want to see, at least boxing heads, would be Saul Alvarez versus Dimitri Bivol. As Bivol said, he can still make the weight at 168. So, while Alvarez is favored for every fight between middleweight and light heavyweight, with maybe the exception of a Artur Beterbiev or Beterbiev, I take Bivol to beat Alvarez or Bivol. Take your pick. Alvarez is one of the toughest outs in boxing, but I think Bivol could do it. I really do. Nevertheless, Jacobs versus Smith is good. Saunders versus any of the guys at the top is good. So he may have to settle for Jacobs or Smith now that the Alvarez fight is out. Anthony Durrell is still around. David Lemieux, Willie Monroe. And then that kid from Omaha, Steve Nelson. That would be a great test for one of the top 10 guys. But the matchup I think most want right now is Benavidez versus Plant. Both undefeated, both young, both skilled. Let's move on. Light heavyweight has a nice mix of fighters in the top 20 or so. And at this point, minus a Saul Alvarez sighting, I'd say the fight to make is Dmitry Bivol versus Artur Beterbiev or Beterbiev. The boxer versus the puncher. Excellent matchup of undefeated fighters and also a unification bout. This is one I'll have the wings ready for. Unless they put it in a location I'd go to see it live. If not, I'm going to have the wings ready because this is one I truly like to see. I'd like to see Kovalev versus Beterbiev, as they were rivals at one point in life. Kovalev was scheduled to fight it'll come to me. He was supposed to fight, oh man, was it Joe Smith? No. Kovalev was, man, was it Joe Smith Jr.? Well, anyway, Gilberto Ramirez versus Eleider Alvarez. That would be something. You got Marcus Brown, Jesse Hart, Joe Smith Jr., Alexander Vosdik, Jean Pascal, used to be John, used to be Jean. It's now Jean Pascal, it appears. Badu Jack, Sully B, Joshua Buatsi, Ahmed Albiali, Vaya Shabransky, Anthony Yard, and dare I say, Bad Chad Dawson, still in the mix. So those are some good high and medium level matchups in this class, and I like this weight class. And so we'll also see how much noise Zurdo Ramirez brings to the class. Okay, he brings a 40-0 record to the division, so we'll see. All right, next up, cruiserweights. The fight you want to see here is the World Boxing Super Series final between Maris Briedis and Uniel Dorticos or Dorticos. Each guy has only one loss. Briedis lost to Alexander Usyk, and Dorticos or Dorticos lost to Murat Gassiev. All right, now this fight was already scheduled for May 16th, but it'll be canceled. I'm sure of it. But it's a version of Bivol versus Beterbiev or Beterbiev. Briedis is going to try to box and also use some power. Dorticos or Dorticos is going to try to knock Briedis out. That's it. Okay. Now that Usyk and Gassiev have moved to heavyweight, you have to look at the landscape of this division. The top 6 guys are aged 35, 33, 32, 34, 32, and 32. All right, so younger players will have to develop or move up or down for this weight class. Okay, you have Artur Spilka. He's 30 and in a class that might work better for him. You got Andrew Tabiti, who's good, but has to bounce back from a brutal, you hear me? Brutal knockout to Dorticos. I mean, that one was nasty. Definitely knockout of the year material. My gosh. You got Lawrence Okoli. He's not bad. He's 27. You got Arsen Gula Marian. Gula Marian, he showed some promise. You got Riyad Murray also. And here's where I wish Michael Hunter would have stayed. I think he would have had a solid shot to win a belt now that Usyk is gone. He might be champion, but he went to the big leagues, which we'll talk about now. Lastly, the heavies. The fight right now people want to see is definitely Anthony A.J. Joshua, the man with just about every belt, versus Tyson Fury. And I can't argue with that. Personally, I'd like to see Alexander Usyk take on any of the top 10 guys, just out of interest. And Usyk is so blessed with so much skill. And he had a fight lined up with the top 10 guy, Derek Chisora. And so we may learn something in this fight if it takes place, as Chisora's won 5 of his last 6 with 4 knockouts, including stoppages of Carlos Takam, Artur Spilka, and David Price. Usyk has 1 fight at the weight with a stoppage of Chaz Witherspoon. The fight, however, is Joshua versus Fury. It appears to get to it, Fury must win his 3rd fight with Wilder, and AJ has to beat Kubrat Pulev. Neither fight is a given. You certainly have to give Fury the edge over Wilder and AJ over Pulev. You know that Wilder can do, you know what he can do, I should say, and he only needs a blink of an eye to do it. I think Joshua has the tougher course, as it has always seemed. You can take his resume and say that it's better than that of Wilder and Fury combined. Okay. Now remember, guys, Kubrat has only 1 loss, and that was 6 years ago against an all-time great heavyweight in Vladimir Klitschko. Kubrat knows he may not get another shot, and he's ready, and he's coming to win. How do I know this? I know this because Kubrat's expected purse is around $5 million, and he's pledged half his purse to aid in helping with the outbreak. You understand? So if you think this is about a payday for him, you are mistaken. Pulev is here to fight, and he's going to be a tough out. 1 loss, 6 years ago, Vladimir Klitschko. All right, Pulev has wins over Rydell Booker, Hughie Fury, Kevin Johnson, Samuel Peter, Derek Chisora, Tony Thompson, Alexander Dimitrenko, Derek Rossi, Travis Freight Train Walker, and my man Dominic Gwynn, among other names. Okay? So, compare his resume to Wilder's and Fury's. All right? In the end, I hope AJ and Fury get victories in their next scheduled fights, if things are going to remain on course. If so, this fight has to be next. Other fights I'd like to see outside of that and Usyk and the top few guys are Wilder versus Andy Ruiz Jr. And I still want to see Joshua versus Wilder for sure. Dillian White versus Wilder, which is well overdue. It needs to be done so they both can shut up. Michael Hunter versus Louis Ortiz. Povetkin versus Louis Ortiz. And of course the step-up fight with Daniel Dubois and Joe Joyce. That one was already scheduled. I'd also like to see Joseph Parker and Prince Charles Martin get a shot at one of the top 10 guys or a top prospect to test them. I wouldn't count out Oscar Rivas or Adam Kalnacki as they both try to bounce back from losses. You got Robert Helenius, who probably get a shot now that he beat Adam. And maybe you make some kind of elimination bout with him. Okay? Prince Charles Martin would likely have to fight Usyk or Hunter if elimination is on the line for Joshua's IBF belt. Helenius would likely have to step in with Emmanuel Char, a Trevor Bryan, or a Louis Ortiz at the WBA angle. And then you got guys climbing the charts like Junior Fa, Philip Herkovich, Frank Sanchez, Zhang Zhilei, Ife Ajaba, Ajit Kabayel, who has a majority decision win over Chisora. And then you got Tony Yoka. Mind you, a lot of these guys fought in the World Series of Boxing, which should be counted as pro fights. For example, Joe Joyce fought Philip Hrgovic. Alexander Usyk fought Joe Joyce. Junior Fa fought Usyk, and so forth. So maybe the loser of those fights will kind of sidestep the guy they lost to, or maybe they want revenge. But there are a host of even type matchups that can be made in this division, but AJ and Fury is the one. Alright, that's about it for me. Feel free to comment, and as we said in the first video, just because the majority of the fans want these fights doesn't mean it's the one you want to watch. So what fights do you want to watch when boxing resumes, and why? Alright, catch you later.